Hello. Welcome. Today's podcast is Why Small Actions Change Your Life.
Right on.
And imagine for just a second that you want to get fit.
Yeah.
Because society immediately tells you what you need to do, right?
Yeah.
You have to buy this $500 gym membership, throw out like every carbohydrate in your kitchen, and just commit to sweating intensely for an hour a day.
Yeah.
6 days a week.
Yeah. Which is terrifying for most people.
Totally.
Right.
But what if the actual secret to losing, say, 10 kilograms is doing just 2 embarrassingly simple push-ups before your morning shower?
I mean, it sounds crazy.
Right. What if the secret to saving $3,000 this year isn't locking your credit cards in a safe, but just a 1-minute habit with a cheap notebook?
It sounds almost like a scam when you phrase it that way, I know.
Yeah.
But it is, without a doubt, one of the most rigorously proven truths in human psychology.
Yeah.
We are conditioned to believe that massive success requires this massive, painful action. But the reality is completely counterintuitive.
And that is absolutely why we are doing this deep dive today. Because we all suffer from this shared delusion. So let me ask you, listening to this right now, have you ever looked at someone who is just undeniably successful?
Oh, we all have.
Like maybe it is a famous author with a stack of bestsellers, or a perfectly fit athlete, or even, a confident public speaker who just commands the room in a second language. Have you ever looked at them and thought to yourself, I could never, ever do that?
It is a universally relatable feeling. I mean, I have felt it. You have felt it. We look at that final, polished, gleaming end result, and we just feel completely paralyzed by the sheer scale of it.
Right, because the gap between where we are sitting right now and where they're standing,
Yeah.
it just looks like an uncrossable canyon.
You hit the nail on the head. We are suffering from what sociologists sometimes call the mountaintop illusion.
The mountaintop illusion. Okay, break that down.
So imagine you are standing at the absolute bottom of a colossal mountain. You're craning your neck, squinting against the sun, just to see the peak. You see the finished book. You see the marathon finish line, or that thriving multinational company. But what are you entirely missing from that vantage point?
All the steps, like the hundreds of thousands of invisible, grueling, tiny little steps it actually took to get up there.
100%. You see the published novel on the bookstore shelf, but you do not see the single messy paragraph that the author forced themselves to write on a Tuesday morning before they even had their coffee, right? When they felt totally uninspired.
Right. Right. We see the runner crossing that finish line, arms raised, the crowd cheering, but we completely missed the short, painful, genuinely uncomfortable 10-minute jog they started with on some freezing dark evening 3 years ago.
Yeah, the jog where they had to stop and walk because their lungs were burning.
Spot on. That is the truth that most people completely miss. And it's a truth that can genuinely, permanently change your life. Every extraordinary achievement in human history began with one small, seemingly insignificant action.
I really want to sit with that for a second. Every single one.
Yeah, the mission of our deep dive today is to really deconstruct this, because it scales from the personal to the monumental. Think about the Great Wall of China, right? One of the most massive structures ever built. It started with a single worker laying one single brick in the dirt.
Absolutely. Or the theory of relativity, which literally changed our understanding of physics forever. It started with one curious question in a young patent clerk's mind about what it would look like to ride a beam with light.
Even your absolute favorite novel that started with one sentence scribbled on a napkin. The most successful tech companies in the world. They didn't start with glass skyscrapers.
No, they started with one simple, awkward conversation in a dusty garage or over a cheap cup of coffee.
And yet, despite all this overwhelming historical evidence, We constantly underestimate the power of these small actions. We dismiss them completely. We tell ourselves, come on, what difference is 5 minutes of reading actually going to make?
Or one healthy meal won't change my body, so I might as well eat the junk food.
Yeah, or specifically for our listeners, studying 10 new English words today is totally pointless when I need to learn thousands to be fluent.
But the science, the history, the psychology, it all tells a completely different story. Small actions are not just important, they are the entire ball game. They are everything.
So I want to get into the anatomy of a small action and really figure out why we sabotage ourselves so consistently. Based on the mountain of source material we are looking at today, how do we actually define a micro step? Because it's not just doing less, is it?
No, not at all. It is a very specific methodology. To make sure we are all working from the same foundation, a true small action, a microstep, has to meet 4 very strict criteria.
Oh, what's the first one?
First, it takes almost 0 time. We are talking usually between 1 and 15 minutes, absolute maximum.
Okay, so it has to be fast.
Got it.
What's the second rule?
Second, it requires incredibly low effort. You do not need a special degree, you don't need expensive gear, and you don't need prior skills. It should be something you can do in your everyday clothes, right in your current environment.
Make it completely frictionless. I love that.
Third, and this is the one that trips people up, it seems completely insignificant on its own.
Wait, really? Insignificant?
Yeah. One single instance of doing this action does not appear to make any difference whatsoever to your life. If you do it once, nothing changes.
Which feels totally counterproductive, but I know we will get into why that's the secret sauce in a minute.
Yeah.
And the 4th criterion.
It is easily and consistently repeatable. It is so easy, so completely devoid of friction that you can do it again and again, day after day, without draining your willpower reserve.
You don't have to hype yourself up.
Right. You don't need a motivational speech to do it.
Let's bring this down to earth with some real-world examples from our research. I have a list right here, and honestly, reading these out loud, they are almost laughably easy. For health, drinking just 1 glass of water the absolute second you wake up.
Yep.
For learning English, reading 1 single page of an English book every day. Not a chapter, a page. For fitness, doing 5 push-ups every morning.
For your career, it could be sending 1 brief networking email per week. For relationships, just sending a simple thinking of you text message to a friend you haven't spoken to in a while.
Mental health. Writing down 3 specific things you are grateful for before your head hits the pillow. Finances. Saving $1 or 1 single unit of your local currency every single day.
Even creativity. Writing 1 sentence in a journal. 1 sentence.
None of these will exhaust you. None of these require you to clear your schedule.
They're microscopic. But here is the magical part. Every single one of those actions, repeated over weeks, months, and years, can completely transform the trajectory of your life.
Okay, I have to jump in and play devil's advocate here. Because I hear you. But realistically, as a human being living a busy life, what difference does a 5-minute read or 1 healthy meal actually make?
Well,
I mean, if I eat a salad for lunch and then a pizza for dinner, my body doesn't care about the salad. Why is our immediate instinct to just roll our eyes and dismiss this entirely?
it is a brilliant question, and the answer lies in how our brains are wired. We actually fall into 3 major psychological traps that actively prevent us from trusting small actions. The first is the instant gratification trap.
Oh, yeah. We're terrible at that.
We really are. We live in a world that is perfectly engineered for speed. Fast food, fast internet, fast deliveries. Social media has essentially trained our neurological reward systems to expect immediate payoffs. When we put in effort, we want to see the result right now.
And small actions just absolutely refuse to work on that timeline.
That's the crazy part, isn't it? They refuse. Let me give you a classic thought experiment that illustrates this perfectly. Imagine I offer you a choice right now. I can give you $1 million in cold, hard cash right this second.
Okay, I'm listening.
Or I can give you a single copper penny, but that penny will magically double in value every single day for 30 days. Which do you take?
Well, I know it's a trick question because of the topic, so I'd take the penny. But my gut screams to take the $1 million.
Most people would take the million without a doubt. Now, let's watch what happens to the person who took the penny. On day 1, they have 1 cent. Day 2, 2 cents. Day 3, 4 cents. Fast forward to day 10, they have exactly $5.12.
Oh, wow.
Meanwhile, the other guy's flying around in a private jet with his $1 million. At day 20, which is 2/3 of the way through the month, the penny has only grown to about $5,000.
That is 20 days of feeling like an absolute fool. 20 days of looking at the other guy's $1 million and thinking, man, I made a terrible mistake. This isn't working.
Yes, that is the invisible phase. That is where 99% of people quit their small actions because the results are invisible. But let's finish the month. On day 29, that compounding penny is worth over $2.6 million.
That's insane.
And on day 30, it is worth over $5.3 million. It absolutely blows the $1 million out of the water.
That visual is staggering.
But it requires surviving that invisible phase. If you read 1 page of English today, you are not going to wake up tomorrow suddenly thinking in fluent English grammar.
Right.
If you do 5 push-ups this morning, you are not going to flex in the mirror this afternoon and see new muscles. The results are completely invisible in the short term. And because of that invisibility, our brains lie to us. The brain says, look, you did the push-ups, nothing changed, this isn't working. Why bother? It is a very convincing lie.
That makes total sense. We quit on day 10 when we only have $5.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the instant gratification trap. What is the second trap we fall into?
The all or nothing mindset. Many people hold this deeply ingrained belief that for change to be meaningful, it has to be dramatic, painful, and huge.
Yes, the go big or go home thing.
Spot on. The thought process is, if I can't go to the gym for a full grueling hour, there is absolutely no point in exercising at all today. Or, if I can't study my English vocabulary for 2 straight hours, why would I bother opening the book for 10 minutes?
I am so guilty of this.
Yeah.
I remember a few years ago, I decided I was going to get into meditation. I read all about the benefits and I told myself, I'm going to meditate for 35 minutes every single morning.
Oh, that's a lot.
It was. Day 1, I did it, and it was agonizing. My mind was everywhere. Day 2, I did 30 minutes and felt really restless. Day 3, I woke up, looked at the clock, realized I only had 15 minutes before I had to leave for work. And I thought, well, 15 minutes isn't a real session. I'll just skip it.
Yeah.
And I never meditated again.
That is the perfect textbook example. Psychologists call this all or nothing thinking or cognitive distortion. It is one of the absolute biggest obstacles to human growth. It makes us believe that small efforts are literally worthless.
Right.
But the reality is the total opposite. Something is always mathematically and psychologically better than nothing. 10 minutes of practice is infinitely better than 0 minutes. 1 push-up is infinitely better than no push-ups. We have to tattoo this core rule onto our brains. Small is not the enemy. 0 is the enemy.
0 is the enemy. I want everyone listening to just let that sink in. 0 is the enemy. And what about the third trap?
The comparison problem. We live in an era of hypervisibility. When we compare ourselves to people who are already at the absolute top of their game, we focus entirely on the massive gap between where they are and where we are.
And looking at that gap, it feels enormous.
Yeah. It feels impossible to cross. But what we fail to see is that those highly successful people crossed that exact same gap, one tiny, unglamorous step at a time.
They did not leap across the canyon in one bound. They walked slowly, consistently, day after day.
We see the polyglot speaking 8 languages fluently on YouTube, and we completely forget they started with one simple, awkwardly pronounced phrase. We see the CEO of the billion-dollar company, and we forget they started by making one terrifying phone call that they almost hung up on.
Comparison just steals our motivation right out of our pockets.
It really does. It paralyzes us. But small actions restore our agency. They give you a safe, manageable place to put your foot down and just take the very first step.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's where it gets really fascinating for me. Because what we are talking about isn't just motivational fluff. It is not just someone standing on a stage telling you to believe in yourself and take small steps.
Not at all. There is cold, hard, peer-reviewed science backing up the power of tiny steps in our sources today. Let's dive into the math and the brain science. Let's start with the math, which you alluded to with the penny. The compound effect.
Right. The compound effect is the underlying mathematical principle that small, consistent actions accumulate over time to produce remarkable, outsized results. It works identically to compound interest in a retirement account.
Break the actual numbers down for us based on the research, like from James Clear's work in Atomic Habits.
Yeah, James Clear breaks it down beautifully. Imagine you figure out a way to improve yourself by just 1% every day. Just 1%.
Which feels like nothing.
It does feel like nothing. At first, as we discussed, that improvement is totally invisible. After 1 week, you've improved by about 7%. After 1 month, maybe 35%. You might barely feel it. But here is where the math gets wild. After 1 full year, you haven't just improved by 365%. Because the gains compound on top of the previous day's gains, you have improved by over 3,700%. You are mathematically 37 times better than when you started.
37 times better in a single year from a 1% daily tweak. That is staggering. I mean, if your English vocabulary is 100 words today and you improve 1% a day, the math says the compounding knowledge transforms your fluency entirely.
It really does.
But the research also points out a terrifying flip side to this math, doesn't it?
It does. The reverse is equally mathematically true. If you get 1% worse each day by skipping your practice, eating poorly, avoiding your exercise, letting your brain passively consume junk content, you don't just stay the same, you decline rapidly over time.
Wow.
Small actions in the right direction compound into extraordinary positive results, but small actions in the wrong direction compound into serious systemic problems. You are always compounding, you just have to choose which direction.
That is a heavy thought. You are always compounding. Okay, so that is the math. Now let's talk about the biological wetware inside our skulls. Neuroplasticity. I am obsessed with this concept.
It is arguably one of the most important discoveries in modern neuroscience. For a long time, the scientific consensus was that the adult brain was fixed. They thought it was like a computer built in a factory. Once the hardware was set in your 20s, it never changed.
Right, you are who you are.
Exactly what they thought. But your brain is actually highly plastic. It physically changes its structure, its density, and its wiring based on what you do repeatedly.
The analogy from our source material that I absolutely love is the overgrown forest. I want you, the listener, to really picture this. Imagine you are standing at the edge of a dense, wild, completely overgrown forest.
Oh, God.
And you need to get to the other side. The first time you try to walk through, it is incredibly difficult. You are hacking away at thick branches. You are tripping over hidden roots. You are pushing through dense, thorny bushes. It takes a massive amount of physical and mental energy just to move 10 feet.
That is a brilliant visualization of the brain's biology. that resistance you feel in the forest. That is exactly what it feels like the first time you try a new small action. When you try to form an English sentence for the first time or do a new physical exercise, your brain has no established neural pathway for that action.
So it's exhausting.
It is. It has to burn a lot of cognitive energy to figure it out. And the brain hates burning energy. It is essentially a lazy computer algorithm designed to conserve calories for survival.
So the brain fights back. It says, this is too hard. Let's stop.
Spot on. But let's go back to your forest. If you force yourself to walk that exact same path the very next day, what happens? It is a tiny, microscopic bit easier. Some of the branches are already broken from yesterday. The brush is a little flattened under your boots.
And if you walk that same path every single day for a month, you create a clear dirt trail.
Mm-hmm.
And if you walk it for a year, that trail becomes a paved road.
Eventually, it becomes a multi-lane highway. It becomes so smooth and clear you could ride a bicycle down it blindfolded without even thinking about it.
That is neuroplasticity in action.
Right. Scientifically, we say neurons that fire together wire together. Every single time you perform a small action, your brain physically strengthens the synaptic connection between those neurons.
So 10 minutes of English practice literally builds new physical cellular connections in your head.
Without a doubt. It lowers the energy required to do it the next time, making the language feel more natural, more automatic. You are essentially giving physical instructions to your brain's architecture about who you are becoming.
Which provides the perfect bridge into the third scientific concept from our research, the psychology of identity. Because as those pathways get stronger, something fundamental changes about how we view ourselves. This is the shift from outcome-based goals to identity-based changes.
This is where the real magic happens. Most people set goals based on outcomes. Things like, I want to lose 10 kilograms, or I want to earn a promotion, or I want to pass the advanced English exam.
Which sounds completely logical. I mean, why wouldn't you focus on the outcome you want?
Because outcomes are distant, and they are often outside of our immediate daily control. If you step on the scale and haven't lost weight, the outcome goal makes you feel like a failure. But deep, lasting behavioral change comes from focusing on your identity.
Oh, I see.
Instead of saying, I want to lose weight, the shift is, I am a person who takes care of my physical health. Instead of, I want to be fluent, it is, I am a person who practices my target language every day.
Okay, I have to push back here because it sounds a bit like toxic positivity.
Mm.
How do we actually build that new identity? Because I can't just stand in front of my bathroom mirror, look at myself, and declare, I am a marathon runner if I haven't jogged a single mile in a decade. My brain knows I'm lying. It feels delusional.
And your brain is absolutely right to reject that. You cannot trick yourself with empty affirmations. You build identity through evidence. And how do you gather evidence? Through small, repeated actions. Think of every single small action you take as a vote.
A vote, like in an election.
Just like an election. Every time you choose to read one page of an English book, you cast a vote for the identity of someone who is a lifelong learner. Every time you choose to drink a glass of water instead of soda, you cast a single vote for someone who respects their body.
Oh, that's good.
Every time you sit down to write just one sentence in a journal, you are casting a vote for someone who is a writer.
That is a phenomenal way to frame it. So you don't need a unanimous vote, right? You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to vote perfectly 365 days a year.
Not at all. In any election, you just need the majority of the votes to win. If you practice your small habit 5 days out of 7, the majority of your votes are cast for your new identity.
Right.
Your brain looks at the physical evidence, the trail in the forest you keep walking, and says, oh, I guess we are a learner now. I guess we are an athlete now. Small actions make winning that internal majority incredibly achievable.
This is clicking for me now. The math proves it grows. The biology makes it easier, and the psychology changes how we view ourselves. But I want to move from theory to reality, because hearing about abstract math and brain synapses is great, but how does this actually look in the wild?
Let's do it.
Let's dive into some real-world case studies from our deep dive today, starting with health, wealth, and work. Let's talk about James.
James is a fascinating case study in overcoming deep psychological resistance. He is a 42-year-old office worker who hasn't exercised deliberately in over 15 years.
Wow, 15 years.
Yeah. He works a sedentary job. He is overweight. His energy crashes every afternoon. And his doctor just gave him a stern warning about his high cholesterol.
Yeah.
He knows, logically, that he has to change. But the idea of going to the gym absolutely terrifies him.
Which is such a common, incredibly human reaction. When he thinks of the gym, he doesn't think of health. He imagines all these super fit, muscular 20-something people staring at him. He imagines these complicated, intimidating steel machines he doesn't know how to adjust.
Exactly. He just foresees pain, physical exhaustion, embarrassment, and ultimate failure. Mm-hmm. So, completely paralyzed by that fear, he does what most of us do. He does nothing.
Until a friend intervenes and suggests a totally different approach. The friend tells him, forget the gym, cancel the idea of the gym, just do 2 push-ups before your morning shower.
And James's immediate reaction is to laugh. Because it sounds ridiculous. 2 push-ups. It won't even raise his heart rate. What is that possibly going to do for his high cholesterol?
Right. He's trapped in the instant gratification mindset.
Spot on. But the friend challenges him to try it for just 1 single week. So James agrees, mostly to prove the friend wrong. Monday morning, he wakes up, walks to the bathroom, gets down on the floor, and does 2 push-ups.
Okay.
It takes him maybe 10 or 12 seconds. He stands up. He feels a little bit foolish, but also, crucially, he feels a tiny, undeniable spark of pride. He did something.
He cast a vote.
Absolutely. Tuesday morning, he does 2 again. Wednesday, he gets down on the floor and decides to do 3. Not because anyone forced him, not because it was on a rigid schedule, but because it felt easy and he just wanted to. By Friday, he is doing 5 push-ups.
Let's analyze the mechanics here. This isn't really about the physical exertion of the push-ups themselves, is it? 2 push-ups aren't building significant muscle mass.
No, it is about hacking the psychological habit loop. Every habit consists of 3 components: a trigger, a routine, and a reward.
Okay, what are they for James?
For James, the trigger is waking up and walking into the bathroom for his shower. That happens every day automatically. The routine is the incredibly low friction action, the push-ups. The reward is that small, potent burst of pride, that dopamine hit of keeping a promise to himself.
And by establishing this loop, James is quietly building a new neural pathway. He's becoming a person who exercises in the morning.
Right on the mark. And the escalation that follows is amazing. It's totally organic. After a month, because 5 push-ups became too easy, he's doing 15 push-ups and he added a 5-minute walk around his block.
Wow.
After 3 months, it's 30 push-ups, a 20-minute brisk walk, and some bodyweight squats. And after 6 months, this is the guy who was utterly terrified of the gym, remember?
Right, he hated the idea.
He is now voluntarily going to the gym 3 times a week.
Because his identity shifted completely. The forest path was cleared. He no longer sees the gym as a place of judgment. He sees it as a place where people like him go. He wants to go. By the end of the year, James lost 12 kilograms, his cholesterol normalized, and his daily energy levels stabilized completely.
A total life transformation, all birthed from a 10-second action.
That is incredible. Let's shift gears from physical resistance to emotional resistance. I want to talk about wealth and specifically Rose's story, because money is a massive stressor and dealing with it often involves huge amounts of denial.
Oh, absolutely. Rose's situation is very common. She's a 30-year-old school teacher. She makes a decent, reliable salary, but somehow at the end of every single month, her bank account is nearly empty.
It just vanishes.
It just vanishes into thin air. Because of this, she lives with a constant low-level baseline of anxiety about emergencies. What if the car needs a repair? What if she has a sudden medical bill? She tried setting up those complicated budgeting spreadsheets, but they required so much mental energy that she gave up after a week.
So she takes the micro-step approach. Her embarrassingly small action is writing down her 3 largest daily expenses in a cheap notebook every single night before bed.
Yep, just 3 things.
Not a massive budget tracking system, just coffee, $4, lunch out, $12, online purchase, $25. It takes her less than 60 seconds. But hold on, I have to play the skeptic again. You're losing me here.
Okay, why?
She didn't cut up her credit cards. She didn't put a strict limit on her spending. How does literally just scribbling ink on a piece of paper magically save money?
Because it leverages the psychological power of awareness to create what we call organic change. For the first 2 weeks, Rosa didn't change her spending habits at all. She still bought the coffee, still bought the lunch, she just recorded it.
Right.
But that 1-minute daily habit acted like a spotlight in a dark room. It brought incredible, unavoidable awareness. She started noticing undeniable patterns. She realized, I spend $4 on a premium coffee every single working day.
Let's do the math on that. $4 a day. That is roughly $120 a month. That is $4,440 a year. Just on the morning coffee run. When you multiply a small, invisible daily expense by 365, it is a brutal wake-up call.
It is. And because of that sudden awareness, she didn't have to rely on strict rules or painful willpower to stop buying it. Her choices naturally, organically shifted. The desire for the coffee was outweighed by the pain of writing it down.
That's fascinating.
She started making coffee at home 3 days a week. She started packing a lunch on Mondays and Tuesdays. She didn't forbid herself from spending. She just became conscious of it.
And the result of this organic shift, after 3 months, she was saving an extra $250 a month, and she didn't even feel deprived because she chose to do it. After 6 months, she had built a $1,500 emergency fund.
The next time her car had a mechanical issue, she paid for it in cash without having a panic attack.
In 1 year, she saved $3,000, all from a 60-second nightly notebook habit.
Let's look at one more transformation in this category, work and career visibility. Let's discuss Anika's story because it highlights how small actions overcome imposter syndrome.
Anika is a 35-year-old software developer. She is incredibly talented, she does great work, but she feels completely stuck in her career. She watches her more introverted colleagues get the promotions, get chosen for the exciting new projects, and she feels invisible.
Right.
But she tells herself a story. I'm just not charismatic. I'm not a natural networker. I can't build a personal brand.
That is a very limiting identity. So instead of trying to become an extrovert overnight, she implements 3 seemingly trivial small actions that require almost zero courage.
And what are they?
First, she decides to send one single LinkedIn message a week to a colleague or an acquaintance in the industry, just congratulating them on a milestone or asking a quick question about their work. That takes 5 minutes a week.
Super easy.
Second, she commits to reading 1 technical article a day on her lunch break. That takes 10 minutes. Third, she shares 1 single insight from what she read on her company's internal team chat every Friday morning. That takes 5 minutes.
Trivial actions. She isn't giving keynote speeches. She isn't hosting networking dinners. But the compounding effect of these actions over time is massive. After 2 months, Those 8 simple LinkedIn messages led to 3 warm, unexpected responses and an invitation for a virtual coffee.
Exactly.
Those 60 technical articles gave her a much broader, cutting-edge view of industry trends that her heads-down colleagues missed. And those Friday insights on the chat. Her team lead started noticing them and publicly complimented her strategic thinking.
Within 6 months, Anika organically became the go-to person on her team for certain complex technical topics. If someone had a question, they went to Anika. Not because she suddenly became a completely different genius-level person, but because she had been consistently, quietly reading and sharing for months.
And it paid off.
It did. She got nominated for a high visibility project, and by the end of the year, she earned a substantial promotion. Her manager specifically praised her incredible growth and leadership initiative.
But the secret we know, that her manager doesn't, is that it wasn't a sudden burst of incredible growth. It was incredibly small actions done with relentless consistency.
You've captured the essence of it perfectly.
Okay, we've seen how this works for fitness, money, and career. But I want to pivot to areas of life that are much harder to measure. You can measure a bank account, you can measure pounds lost, but can small actions fix a deteriorating marriage? Can they cure a foggy, anxious mind? Can they help someone finally master a language?
Yes, to all of the above.
Let's look at transformations in language, love, and the mind. Starting with Sophia. And I really want our English learning audience to lean in here.
Sophia's story is the classic archetype of the frustrated language learner. She is a 28-year-old marketing professional from Brazil. She knows that mastering English will unlock huge career opportunities for her. And she has been trying to learn for years.
We've all been there.
She has bought the expensive courses, downloaded every app, bought thick grammar workbooks, signed up for online academies. But every single time, she quits after a month.
Because her goals were completely, wildly massive. She would tell herself, I'm going to study grammar for 2 hours every day after work. I'm going to memorize 50 new vocabulary words a week, and I'm going to watch 3 movies in English without subtitles.
Right.
I mean, they're admirable goals, but they are totally unsustainable if you have a demanding full-time job, a family, and a need for sleep. She inevitably burned out. It's the all or nothing trap again.
Spot on. So she completely abandoned the grand plans. She swapped out the 2-hour grueling sessions for a 4-minute daily routine. She broke it down into micro steps.
Walk us through those 4 minutes.
Step 1, read 1 paragraph of an English news article while drinking her morning coffee. That took 2 minutes. Step 2, identify 1 new word from that paragraph and write it in the sentence. 1 minute.
Okay.
Step 3, listen to 1 English podcast on her commute to work. This took 0 extra time since she was already driving. And step 4, write 1 single sentence in English in her journal before going to sleep. 1 minute.
4 dedicated minutes a day. It feels absurd to even call that studying. But look at the sheer undeniable volume of progress over a year. 365 paragraphs read. That is the equivalent of reading several long, complex articles.
Without a doubt.
365 new vocabulary words used in context. 365 podcast episodes absorbed, tuning her ear to the natural rhythm and pronunciation of the language. She built those dense neural pathways without ever experiencing the friction of burnout.
And her colleagues started noticing her improved emails. She actually got promoted to a client-facing role that required English communication.
It is the perfect stark contrast between an unsustainable big plan that leads to 0 and a sustainable small practice that leads to mastery.
Now let's talk about love and relationships. David and Lena's story. I think a lot of long-term couples listening to this will relate intimately to this dynamic.
Oh, definitely. So David and Elena have been married for 9 years. They have two young kids. They both work demanding full-time jobs. They absolutely love each other, but the romantic spark is slowly fading. By the end of the day, they are just physically and emotionally exhausted.
Every conversation they have has devolved into pure, dry logistics.
Did you pay the electric bill? The kids need new shoes for school. What are we doing for dinner? Who is picking up the dry cleaning? They feel like two business partners running a chaotic household, not romantic partners.
And the idea of fixing it feels overwhelming. Couples therapy feels like this huge, dramatic, expensive step that they don't have the time or energy for. It feels like admitting defeat. So Elena decides to take matters into her own hands with 3 tiny actions that total less than 3 minutes a day.
What does she do?
First, she commits to sending 1 appreciative text message per day. Not a text about logistics, but about him. Something simple like, I'm really grateful you're in my life, or I was just remembering that trip we took to the coast. That takes 30 seconds.
Nice.
Second, she decides to ask 1 meaningful question each evening. Not the generic, robotic, how was your day, which inevitably just gets a 1-word answer like, fine, but something slightly deeper. What was the best moment of your day today? Or what was the most frustrating part of that meeting you had? That takes 2 minutes of focused listening.
And the third one is absolutely my favorite because of the biological impact. 1 intentional 10-second hug before they leave for work. Not a quick distracted pat on the back while holding car keys and a travel coffee mug. A real chest-to-chest 10-second hug.
The psychology of what happens next is beautiful. At first, David is confused. He even asks her, what's gotten into you? But he genuinely appreciates it. And here is the key dynamic of human relationships: reciprocity.
Right, mirroring.
Exactly. When Elena consistently inputs positive, small actions, David begins to unconsciously reciprocate. He starts sending appreciative texts back during his lunch break. He starts asking her meaningful questions while they cook dinner. The 10-second hug, which felt forced on day 1, becomes a cherished, grounding morning ritual for both of them.
By month 3, David openly admits he feels closer to her and more seen than he has in years. And by 6 months, they are hiring a babysitter and going on a genuine date night. Not forced by a therapist, but because they actually truly want to spend time together.
Oh.
A marriage pulled back from the brink of roommate status by under 3 minutes of intention a day.
Let's round out this section with Thomas and how small actions impact the mind. Thomas is 25 years old. He has a decent job, a nice apartment, a good group of friends. On paper, everything looks fine.
But internally, he is battling persistent low mood, brain fog, and underlying anxiety. The negative self-talk is incredibly loud. I'm not good enough. I'm falling behind. Things won't get better.
And he's very resistant to therapy or medication. He tells himself he just needs to toughen up and push through it. But that mental fog makes every day feel like walking through mud. So he agrees to try a 90-second nightly gratitude practice.
Okay, gratitude journaling.
Yeah, he gets a notepad and commits to writing down 3 things he is grateful for. But there is a very strict rule for this micro step. They have to be hyper-specific things from that exact day, not generic overarching statements like, I love my family, or I'm glad I have a job.
Right. It has to be granular. It has to be, I'm grateful for the feeling of the warm sunlight on my face during my walk to the train. Or, I'm grateful for the perfectly seasoned pasta I made for dinner. Or, I'm grateful my coworker made me laugh today.
At first, Thomas finds this incredibly difficult. His anxious brain strongly resists. He sits there staring at the blank page, feeling like it is cheesy and pointless.
But then, by the second week, something subtle but profound shifts. What is actually happening in his neural pathways?
Because Thomas knows he has a homework assignment to write down 3 specific good things at 10 p.m., his brain's reticular activating system starts actively scanning his environment for good things during the day because he needs material for his list.
Oh, it's so clever.
He starts noticing small, beautiful pleasures he previously ignored entirely: the smell of rain, a kind interaction with the barista, the comfort of his couch. This completely shifts his daily perspective from a negative bias to a positive bias.
The fog literally gets lighter. Because he's focusing on positive inputs, his nervous system calms down. He starts sleeping better. And by month 3, this tiny gratitude habit acts as a gateway. He naturally starts meditating for 2 minutes in the morning. He starts going for evening walks to clear his head. The one small action opened the door to a whole cascade of betterment.
Which brings us perfectly to the underlying architecture of momentum. Why do these isolated habits inevitably spread to completely unrelated areas of life? We call this the domino effect.
Yes, I have been marveling at the cascading effects in all these case studies. How does reading one English paragraph lead to a job promotion? How does writing down expenses lead to less anxiety overall?
The domino effect works because confidence is completely 100% transferable. When Sophia proved to herself that she could be disciplined and consistent with her 4-minute English practice, she gained a new level of self-trust.
That makes sense.
That new confidence made her feel bolder, which led her to speak up more in team meetings. Speaking up showcased her expertise, which led to new opportunities and a promotion, which led to higher income. The higher income reduced her financial stress, and less stress improved her personal relationships.
Success breeds success. Momentum builds momentum. You knock over one tiny 1-inch domino and it knocks over a 2-inch domino, and soon you're knocking over boulders.
That is the exact mechanism, and there is a broader organizational application of this called the aggregation of marginal gains. The most famous, rigorously documented example of this is the story of Dave Brailsford and the British cycling team.
Oh, this story is legendary in sports psychology. Set the scene for us, because the transformation is unbelievable.
In 2003, Dave Brailsford was hired as the performance director of British cycling. At the time, the team was an absolute laughingstock. They were mediocre at best. They hadn't won a Tour de France in 110 years.
Wow, 110 years.
In fact, one of the top bike manufacturers in Europe refused to sell bikes to the team because they thought it would hurt their brand if the British rode their gear. No one expected them to ever be champions. But Brailsford introduced this relentless philosophy of aggregating marginal gains.
Okay.
His theory was that if you break down everything you can think of that goes into riding a bicycle and improve every single small aspect by just 1%, the combined improvements would add up to monumental, unbeatable results.
And the 1% tweaks they made are fascinating because they go so far beyond just training harder. Everyone trains hard. Brailsford looked at the microscopic details. They redesigned the bike seats to be slightly more aerodynamic and comfortable. They rubbed alcohol on the tires for slightly better grip. They tested dozens of massage gels to find the exact chemical composition that helped muscles recover the fastest.
They went much further than the bikes. They hired a surgeon to come in and teach the elite riders the absolute best way to wash their hands to avoid catching a cold during a major tournament.
Wait, really? A surgeon for hand washing?
Yes. They tested fabrics in wind tunnels. They found the absolute ideal pillow and mattress for each specific rider's optimal sleep, and they brought those exact pillows to every hotel they traveled to.
They even painted the inside of the team's transport truck completely white. I remember reading this and thinking it's crazy. Why paint a truck floor white? because it allowed them to easily spot tiny, almost invisible dust particles that might get into the finely tuned bike mechanics and degrade performance by a fraction of a percent. Now let's pause and analyze that. Painting a truck floor white doesn't make a cyclist pedal faster.
Not physiologically, no, but psychologically, it creates a culture of absolute excellence. It signals to the team that every single detail matters. When you combine the white truck, the pillows, the hand washing, the massage gels, and the aerodynamics, you get a compounding effect that is unstoppable.
And the results speak for themselves. Within 5 years of Brailsford taking over, British cyclists completely dominated the road and track cycling events at the 2008 Olympics in Beijing, winning an astounding 60% of the gold medals available.
And within 10 years, they won the Tour de France not once, but multiple times with different riders. They became the most successful cycling team in the history of the sport. They didn't look for one massive magical breakthrough. They stacked dozens of tiny, well-chosen improvements that compounded.
This story completely dismantles the societal obsession we have with the big break. We love the myth of the overnight success. We love the narrative of the genius who wakes up and changes the world. We see the author whose debut book goes viral and it's the bestseller list, or the tech startup that explodes into a unicorn overnight, or the singer who gets discovered on YouTube and wins a Grammy.
But that is the iceberg illusion. When you actually peel back the layers and look behind those flashy headlines, you almost always find years, sometimes decades, of unglamorous, consistent, microscopic action. The viral author. She had been waking up at 5 a.m. and writing a blog post every single week for 3 years before anyone noticed her. Thousands of hours of practice to refine her voice. The exploding startup founder. He failed at 2 previous embarrassing businesses, spent 5 years aggressively networking in obscurity, and read hundreds of boring strategy books.
The YouTube singer. She posted 200 videos filmed in her bedroom before the algorithm finally picked one up. She took small gigs at local cafes for 0 money for a decade. There are almost no true overnight successes. There are only small actions that compound until they finally cross the threshold of visibility.
There is a beautiful, deeply pragmatic Japanese philosophy for this concept called Kaizen, which translates to continuous improvement through small incremental changes. It is the very philosophy that helped rebuild Japan's manufacturing economy from the ashes after World War II, and it is the operating system that drives major innovative companies today.
And there is one more huge practical benefit to this approach that we haven't discussed yet. Protection from failure. Small actions carry almost 0 risk.
That is a brilliant point. If you commit to doing 1 push-up a day and you fail, what have you actually lost? 10 seconds of your life. You haven't ruined your body. You haven't lost money. There is no dramatic, life-altering downside to failing a micro step.
Absolutely. But compare that to the grand, sweeping plans we usually make when we are motivated on January 1st. Signing up for a non-refundable year-long gym membership that you never use. That is $500 wasted, plus the guilt of seeing the key tag on your keys every day.
Or quitting your stable job to start a business without any preparation or savings. That is months of income lost and potential ruin. Committing to an extreme, punishing liquid diet. You inevitably abandon it after 2 miserable weeks, and you are left with emotional exhaustion, a damaged metabolism, and a deep sense of failure.
Grand plans carry grand risks. The stakes are too high. Small actions remove the absolute biggest barrier to starting anything new, the paralyzing fear of failure. Because the risk is so incredibly low, your brain doesn't trigger its alarm systems. You are much more likely to actually just start.
Okay, we have covered the philosophy, the deep science, the compelling math, and the real-world proof. Let's shift entirely to practical application. The listener is sitting there right now, commuting or doing dishes, thinking, I am convinced, I am in. But how do I actually start this today without messing it up? Our research outlines a very clear 6-step blueprint to guide you. Step 1, choose one area.
This is critical, and it's where I usually mess up. Do not try to change your entire life all at once. That is the classic New Year's resolution trap. Pick just one single area that matters the absolute most to you right now. It could be advancing your English, getting your personal finances in order, improving your cardiovascular health, or nurturing a specific relationship. Pick one. Let the domino effect take care of the rest later.
Step 2, formulate the embarrassingly small action. I really love this phrasing. If you tell a friend what your daily goal is and you don't feel a little bit silly saying it out loud, your goal is too big.
Right. If you think, come on, that's too easy, that won't do anything, then it is the exact right size. Do not say, I will study English grammar for an hour. Say, I will read one single sentence. Do not say, I will write a novel. Say, I will open a Google Doc and write 10 words. The goal at the very beginning is not achievement. It is not excellence. It is purely consistency. You are just trying to show up and cast that daily vote for your new identity.
Step 3 is habit stacking. This answers the question, how do we make sure we don't just forget to do our embarrassingly small action when life gets busy?
You attach it to something you already do every single day without fail. You piggyback on an established neural pathway. The formula is, after I do my existing habit, I'll do my new small action.
Give us some practical examples of how that sounds.
So after I pour my first cup of morning coffee, I will read one page of an English book. The coffee is the trigger. Or after I brush my teeth at night, I will write 3 specific things I'm grateful for in my notebook. The toothbrush is the trigger. Or after I park my car in the driveway after work, I will do a 2-minute walk around the block before going inside.
By linking the new fragile action to a strong existing habit, you create an automatic built-in trigger. You do not have to rely on motivation, which is incredibly fickle and depends on your mood. And you do not have to rely on memory, which is faulty. The existing habit reminds you automatically.
Step 4, track consistency using Jerry Seinfeld's chain. This is crucial. Do not measure results yet. Don't step on the scale. Don't check your bank balance. Don't take an English fluency test. Just track whether you executed the action.
The legendary comedian Jerry Seinfeld famously used the don't break the chain method to ensure he wrote new jokes daily. He would get a massive physical wall calendar. He would put a big, thick red X on every single day he completed his small action of writing. After a week, you have a visual chain of X's. Your only job in the entire world is to not break that visual streak.
Don't worry if the joke is funny. Don't worry if the English sentence is grammatically perfect. Just get the X. After 30 days, looking at that unbroken chain, you will feel genuine identity-shifting pride.
Step 5 is the 2-minute rule for increasing. Once your small action feels completely effortless, once the forest path is a paved road, you can grow it, but you must do it slowly.
Very slowly.
Only increase your action by an amount that adds a maximum of 2 minutes to your routine. If you did 1 push-up for 2 weeks, go to 3 push-ups. Do not jump to 20. If you read 1 English sentence for 2 weeks, go to 1 paragraph. The growth should be so incredibly gradual that your lazy brain barely even notices the extra effort.
And finally, step 6, never miss twice. This is such a deeply empathetic, realistic rule because life happens.
You are a human being, not a robot. You will inevitably miss a day. Maybe you get sick. Maybe a project at work runs late. Maybe you just completely forget. Missing 1 single day does not erase your compounding progress, and it does not destroy your neural pathways. But the critical, non-negotiable rule is never missing twice in a row.
I love that. Missing once is an accident. It's a blip. Missing twice is the birth of a new bad habit. It is the start of a new chain in the wrong direction. If you miss Monday, you have to do whatever it takes to show up on Tuesday, even if it is just a microscopic 10-second version of your action. The saying goes, a stumble is not a fall. You just keep walking.
Now, keeping our specific audience of language learners in mind, our research provides a section dedicated entirely to the English Learner's Toolkit. We have a menu of 10 highly effective microactions, all taking under 5 minutes each, that you can start using the second this deep dive ends.
Let's run through these quickly because they are gold. Number 1, learn and use one new vocabulary word in a sentence, just one. Number 2, read one short paragraph of news and look up only the unknown words. Number 3, listen to 5 minutes of an English podcast. And the key here is just focus on the rhythm and flow of the speaker. Do not stress about perfect comprehension. Number 4, write one specific personal sentence about your day in a journal.
Number 5, think or narrate internally in English for 2 minutes. This is brilliant. While you are making breakfast, just think to yourself, I am opening the fridge, the water is boiling, I am pouring the coffee. You are training your brain to think in the language, not just translate it.
That's a great one.
Number 6, repeat a tongue twister 3 times to practice physical mouth fluency, like the classic, she sells seashells by the seashore.
Okay, let me try that fast. She sells seashells by the seashore. She sells seashells by the seashore. See, even native speakers trip up on the physical mechanics. It's great practice. Number 7, watch one short YouTube video or reel with English subtitles on. Number 8, record yourself speaking on your phone for 30 seconds and listen back to notice your own pronunciation. It's uncomfortable, but highly effective. Number 9, translate one interesting sentence from your native language into English. And number 10, teach someone one phrase you just learned, or just write an explanation on a piece of paper as if you were teaching it to an imaginary student. The act of teaching requires a deeper level of mastery.
And as we are deeply immersed in discussing English learning, our source material highlighted several key idioms that we have naturally woven throughout this very conversation. It is worth pausing to ensure these really sink in for our listeners, as understanding them adds great nuance to your fluency.
Oh, that's one of them right there. Sink in, which means to be fully absorbed, understood, or realized. Like, let the reality of the math sink in.
Spot on. We also talked earlier about being on the same page, which means having a shared understanding of a situation or the rules before moving forward. We mentioned James's energy going through the roof after he started exercising, which is a great idiom for something increasing rapidly to an extremely high level.
We talked about David asking Elena, what's gotten into you, when she started hugging him. That is a very natural conversational way of asking why someone is suddenly acting so differently than usual. We mentioned that Anika became the go-to person at her tech company, meaning she became the most reliable, best person to ask for help on a specific topic.
We noted that Thomas stumbled upon his morning walks after his gratitude practice, meaning he found the habit almost by accident. We noted that success breeds success, meaning it naturally produces or leads to more of it. And finally, Jerry Seinfeld's famous rule to not break the chain, meaning to interrupt a continuous streak of consistency.
We have covered an immense amount of ground today. From the overgrown forests of our neuroplastic brains, to the compounding math of a penny, to the white floors of a cycling truck. To summarize our core thesis for you today, you do not need exhausting, painful, completely unsustainable overhauls to change the trajectory of your life. You do not need grand, risky plans. What you need are microscopic, embarrassingly small, consistent steps that eventually run on autopilot and compound massively over time.
The architect of your future is not swinging a massive, dramatic wrecking ball. The true architect is using a tiny trowel, quietly laying one single brick every single day. I want to leave the listener with a piece of profound, enduring wisdom from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You don't have to see the whole staircase, you just have to take the first step.
That is a beautiful thought to end on. But it brings me to a final, slightly provocative idea that I want you to chew on as we wrap this up. We talked deeply about the psychology of identity, how every small action you take is a positive vote for the person you want to become. But consider the inverse of that. What are your small inactions doing? If you skip that 1 minute of English practice, or you intentionally skip that one simple push-up, are you casting a silent, invisible vote for the exact person you don't want to be? You are always voting, every single day, with every action and inaction, whether you realize it or not. The polls never close in your mind. So the only question left is, how will you vote today? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Please like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.